Dinosaurs and man, two species separated by 65 million years of evolution, have just been suddenly thrown back into the mix together. How can we possibly have the slightest idea what to expect?
Hello, and welcome back to the NeoJurassic Podcast. I'm your host, Bri, and I'm very, very happy you decided to join the show for another episode. Do you remember the first time you saw a dinosaur? For most of us, the first time we actually experience a dinosaur in any form, it's not encased in fossilized rock at a dig site or towering above a crowd of tourists in a meticulously reconstructed skeletal mount. No, the first time we encounter a dinosaur, it's usually, 3 to 12 inches long, made up of plastic polymers of some kind, and spotted in the toile of a department store. Dinosaurs show up in the lives of children not much differently than superheroes, Ewoks, talking cars, or dragons do, as miniatures of make-believe creations. However, unlike Darth Vader, the medieval dragon, the unicorn, the Disney princess, the Transformer, the Sentinel, the Godzilla thing, the dinosaurs were once living, breathing creatures. And in my experience, when the kid learns that sharp-toothed plastic beastie currently gnawing on a member of the Paw Patrol was not only once alive, but nearly 50 feet in length, well, one of two things usually occur. One, the kid shrugs and continues smashing pieces of plastic together, or the kid becomes helplessly obsessed with the mystery and awe of these long-gone behemoths. For us dinosaur lovers, these toys are probably about as close as we'll ever get to actually experiencing one of these animals firsthand. Truthfully, I could allow myself to get real glassy-eyed and go on for a while about the vital legacy of these miniature plastic dinosaurs. And honestly, at some point, I'm sure I will. However, we've got a 90-minute interview to get through, so I'm just going to go ahead and head in. Our very special guest today, if you're wondering, is Chris Pugh. Chris is notably one of the founding members of what is arguably the best-known fan-run Jurassic news source on the web, Jurassic Outpost. He is also one of the hosts of Outpost's long-running but somewhat sporadically produced Jurassic podcast, the InGeneral Podcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts, I must say. In more recent years, like very recent years, Chris has joined the collective responsible for maintaining the Jurassic World film's canon consistency and viral online marketing campaigns, Chaos Theorem. More recently, however, Chris, alongside Jurassic Outpost co-founder Jack DeLamar, has partnered up with the folks at Universal, Mattel, and Target to produce and host a new collectors-focused web series just for Jurassic fans. The series Beyond the Gates offers exciting reveals of exclusive upcoming products as well as behind-the-scenes insights from Mattel and dips into the lore behind these beloved characters and critters. So we're just going to go ahead and begin our conversation with Chris at the very beginning of his Jurassic story, with one very slick grandma and a contraband VHS tape that would have a major, major impact on Chris's life.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a Jurassic fan since I think I always liked dinosaurs. I reacted very strongly to the Carnegie Museum of Natural History when I was like a toddler. I mean, that's still like one of my earliest memories is just looking up at it was the old fixtures. I don't know if you're familiar with the way it looked. But
I've actually never been there. Yeah.
The dinosaurs were like, their arms were up in the bunny poses. The Allosaurus looked like it was plotting. All their backs were sloped. Like it was the old Charles R. Knight style of displays, and I still remember those things looming over me. So I always had a fascination with dinosaurs. So then Land Before Time, and then my grandma snuck me the Jurassic Park VHS when I was like 2 or 3.
Oh wow!
My mom was livid until she realized that I loved it.
And you didn't suffer like unrelenting nightmares after that?
No, you know what? Okay, this is really funny because I was just thinking back. I've never found animals scary, but what's really funny is I'm a big dog person, and this would be like really surprising for people who know me now. But when I was a kid, I was afraid of dogs. So I don't know what the hell that has to do with anything that I just said right now.
But
I never found dinosaurs scary. I never really found animals scary. I just found them fascinating. And I think Jurassic Park, and this is something that if you follow me on social media, you hear me say way too much. What made it so special was it treated the dinosaurs like animals.
Right. Yeah.
And so I don't think I found them scary at that age because I just saw them as these big animals. So I was just fascinated. I don't know.
How old were you, if I may ask, when you saw Jaws, if you can remember?
Oh, I was way older, actually, because my mom was terrified of that movie. So she never really introduced me to it.
Okay, that explains it then.
I saw Congo at my dad's house when I think I was like 5. And I definitely vividly remember the eyeball scene. Just like I think that one stuck with me, creeped me out. I'm trying to think of what other ones creeped me out like that. I don't know. It's like a lot of the movies that creep me out are like the ones that shouldn't, like Brave Little Toaster. Scary ass oven. Scary ass furnace, I should say.
Yeah.
It was the furnace. Ironically, I then a few years later was a furnace for Halloween. I don't know if there's any relation there.
I mean, I'm sure it must be. I mean, the furnaces are often utilized as terrifying basement monstrosities. So, I mean, I'm sure it's part of that.
Mine wasn't a stylized furnace, though. It was just a furnace.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Just like my mom made me a furnace costume. That's what I asked to be.
How old were you? Do you recall?
Like 7 or 8.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah. How old were you when Jurassic Park came out?
Like a baby. That was like when I was baby, Chris.
Okay, cool.
Like
so
I
how old were you
with Jurassic Park?
Yeah. So how old were you when your grandma slipped you the VHS?
It was like 2 or 3. Somewhere right around there. It's
Damn, that is young. And also, how do you slip a 2 to 3 year old a VHS?
Okay, to be fair, she bought it.
Okay.
She bought it, and then she was watching me, and then she said, "Do you want to watch the dinosaur movie that you're not supposed to see, but you keep seeing commercials of, or toys of?" I was really obsessed with toys, and it was like, yeah. And I think she thought it might be a little bit lighter than what it was. But by the end of it, the reaction was good because my mom came in about halfway through, and I remember that vaguely. I don't know. So then she's like, well, I bought it for him. Can he keep it? And I gave my mom those puppy dog eyes, I guess, something like that. I definitely remember pleading. And so.
That's wonderful. And so you would have been like, were you able to go see The Lost World in theaters?
Yes. That is the first movie I remember seeing in theaters.
Talk to me about the lead up to Lost World for you, because that's like a very special time for many of us.
Super young.
Yeah.
I was still super young, so it's like some of the details are foggy, but I definitely remember talking about it with like people in preschool. They had there were, ironically, most of the toys were hand-me-downs, so they're from like an age bygone. So most of them were like Ghostbuster toys and things like that, which is fun. And there's some Jurassic Park toys, but yeah, no, I remember talking dinosaurs and things like that, and then just seeing the trailers and talking about it with my mom, like, oh, what dinosaur is that type of deal. And yeah, no, so we went to see it. I don't know if it was opening day. I don't know how like recently after it was out. I don't know if she like saw it before I saw it to see if it was okay. I don't know. But I do remember it was a thunderstorm, and I loved the hell out of that movie, and it stuck with me. Like there was a thunderstorm outside when I saw it.
So you remember being in the theater. Oh, there's a thunderstorm outside, and then of course inside, and of course all the marketing material had like thunderstorms leading up to it. So
oh my god, it was so perfect. It just it's like selling like the idea of seeing movies during the summertime, because like it's like, oh man, you really do feel like you're in that environment.
Where did it go from that point?
It was always toys. So I really love the toys. It started with Jurassic Park. I mean, I have early memories. And they're mainly images, but I have early memories of like seeing the Jurassic Park toys on shelves, the old style of Toys R Us, back when like, video games were like slip out cards and like a long like lit up aisle. But yeah, no, it was the toys. I remember my biggest thing was I wanted the trailer playset. And for Christmas, that was something I've always wanted. My mom got it for me. To be fair, though, at that time, it was like you couldn't find the trailer anymore. She got me the Chaos Effect one. And then I remember the Chaos Effect toy line.
Oh, damn.
Then being curious if Ultimasaurus would, ever be released. Which, by the way, funny story, that was a precursor to the Indominus Rex. In a lot of ways, Spielberg had a maquette of it, a realistic style one.
Oh, really?
Back in those days. Yes, it's back in those days, and he got obsessed with hybrids.
I would love to see that maquette. I'm sure we'll never see it.
I would love to see it as well.
Yeah, I would love to see it. And then walk me through your continued evolution of baby Chris through Jurassic.
Yeah. Okay. So I always loved the Carnegie Museum, and museums in general, science. So like, not only was I growing up with dinosaurs and obsessing over Jurassic Park, I was buying every books are way above my reading level. Every dinosaur book, every dinosaur encyclopedia, studies, journals, everything like that. I would go to the museum every weekend with my mom, so much so that I had relationships, I knew the paleontologists kind of grew up seeing me come there, to the point where when I was 12, 13, I mean, I was offered a internship of sorts immediately, just on a program that didn't even exist. Yeah. So I started doing that. I was a teen docent, which is teen volunteer. And at the same time, then I was interning, I don't know if I want to use the word interning because I'm not really sure what to call it, but I was working under Dr. Matt Lamana at the Carnegie, and I was working on abelisaurids from Bahariya Formation, among other things. It was a cool time.
Ooh.
And then I switched.
What species are part of that formation?
So Bahariya, you would know because
you can remember
Spinosaurus, if I recall, Spinosaurus, Spinosaurids. So what was interesting, I'm trying to think of what other, isn't there Bahariasaurus, I think? But I'm trying to think of what other dinosaurs. But yeah, we had a unnamed, undiscovered abeliosaurid. It still is yet to be classified. But we had some fragmentary bones, and my main job was to catalog them, to kind of get some of the grit off of them. Then I would sketch them, measure them, write down everything, and then go through all the scientific journals and try to figure out what dinosaurs these had most similar traits with. And so
how old were you when this was happening?
Started when I was 13, and it went on to when I was about 17.
Cool.
And then Matt had already done all this, so he sort of knew where I should be coming with it. So eventually I was like, you know what, it looks most like, it's definitely, I think it's an abeliosaurid, and it looks most like a Rahasaurus. Rahasaurus? I'm trying to think of how I say that now. And yeah, so it still hasn't been categorized, but it was striking how much it looked like that dinosaur. And we were working off of very fragmentary bones, like the tip of a right metatarsal too, and things like that. But yeah, so I was doing all that, and at the same time I was obsessing over Jurassic toys, and at a very young age I joined about 10. So at about 10 years old, I think. Yeah, about 10 years old I joined JP Toys Forum. And that's, I think I stuck with that forum for a very long time. And I mainly learned, I lurked JP Legacy, but I didn't start posting there until some of the later ends of the days. But I was pretty active on JP Toys, but not the most active. I was a slow poster, but I was there for a long time.
Do you recall your username?
Yeah, it was Carnotaurus 1350, and then it was Demon Carnotaur.
Oh, cool.
And then it was Chris Like
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think I remember you from being Demon Carnotaur, actually, from that period of time.
Yeah, no, because even at that age, I was digging into trying to find scoops and stuff like that for Jurassic toys.
Yeah,
I was always just calling Hasbro. I got them to share some pictures. I don't know, I don't really know what the secret sauce was with that, but it was a time. Although I'm not like some of the more prolific collectors out there that have I don't have all the rare. I don't have really any rare pieces. Like unreleased pieces, I should say. Yeah. So there are other kids doing a lot more than me back then. Buying the Ultimasaurus and everything along those lines. Unreleased trike.
Did you go to Dan's Lost World page or Dan's JP3 page back in the day?
A little bit. I was not the obsessive Dan's JP3 page person. For some reason, my main imprint on the internet back then was AIM, I think. AOL Instant Messenger. And JP Toys. That was my interaction with the internet, really, for a long time.
I remember going to Dan's Lost World page and then JP3 page every day, I think, from the time the novel came out to the day that the website stopped operating regularly, just obsessively looking to find out any information I could about the adaptation of the Carnotaurus scene from the Lost World novel into anything Jurassic. Just obsessively. That was my white whale from the age of 10 to 35.
How do you feel about this? Is a little sidetrack, but how do you feel about when the Carnotaurus finally made its debut in the franchise? Like, did it live up to it for you?
No, of course not. I mean, here's the thing. Carnotaurus, what we know about it now, the idea of it having like chromatophores comparable to a cuttlefish or some type of ambush predator doesn't really make any sense given what we know about Carnotaurus. So I'm kind of happy that they didn't give that trait to the Carnotaurus in the end. So I can live with that moving forward. However, I still love Carnotaurus. And I do think that, I am very critical of the Jurassic World movies on the podcast, and it is hard to do. But I don't think that there's much of like, I just felt like a non sequitur nonsense thing. Like it just felt like a comic book character cameo more than anything else.
Fans really want this dinosaur in the movie, so let's just throw it in this scene. And there's not really a scene written around it. The design, there's not necessarily, I mean, in terms of accuracy, there are things wrong with the design, but overall, there's not necessarily anything wrong with the design. In theory, it's one of the stronger designs, but the problem is I've seen 1,000 versions of Carnotaurus that looks exactly like that in media. Specifically, when I remember their alleged leaks lead up to Fallen Kingdom, and I thought one of them was fake because they showed and described the Carnotaurus as looking like the sideshow version. And I'm like, well, that's,
the sideshow, but yeah.
I'm like, well, it's not that. So obviously it's not true. But in retrospect, no, it was real. And it's like, it was kind of boring, I guess. And also we're getting a lot of spiky, scaly dinosaurs. And I mean, I don't know, give me one, do something different with the soft tissue.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of my biggest issues. But again, like, it's kind of mortifying to me how often in these Jurassic World movies they have just taken existing designs of animals and just often toys and just toss them into the sideshow Carnotaurus. I mean, the list goes on, and then just like churn out this thing. The extremely uninspired creature design in these movies is something that unfortunately keeps me up at night.
No, I definitely have my issues there. There's no question about it. I think that, we also see it with the returning species where they kind of look like their Jurassic Park counterparts, but really don't. So they tend to look a little bit like a knockoff. Like it's almost like an uncanny valley effect.
Yeah.
Where it's like close,
absolutely,
but absolutely not right. So it's super off. And it's like, well, if you would have done your own thing, I wouldn't be comparing it. But like right away, it just sort of looks like that knockoff version of the Jurassic Park T-Rex, the knockoff, the Papo version of the Jurassic Park Brachiosaurus.
Absolutely.
It just, I don't know. It's like,
there's so many layers of that. There's like the snake eating its own tail.
Yeah.
Jurassic influences everything else. Like every Dilophosaurus has the frill. Every raptor you see now has a blue stripe on it. And so like that thing just perpetuates over and over and over again. And it's so dark to me.
Yeah, no, that's why I would like to see at least the Jurassic franchise maybe lead a little bit more once again with, maybe embracing what made the original like really stand out from the bunch, embrace the art style of the original, to a T with the returning species. And maybe, I don't know, it feels like it's kind of following trends, whether it's other pop culture or just itself, but kind of loosely. So it just sort of feels like it's copying itself, but not properly. Like, it's like, I don't know. It's a weird position that it's at, but like that's things that, us as super fans are more cued into than like the average casual viewer. When they see the T-Rex, they're like, yeah, that's the T-Rex. But me, I'm like, for sure, the T-Rex.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then also like generationally, it's fascinating to see like different generations of Jurassic fans and how they respond to different things is very intriguing. All right, so we've kind of approached your relationship to Jurassic at the time of Jurassic Park 3. How did you feel about that?
Did not like it. My mom was like, absolutely. She's like, are you sure? Like I said, I didn't want to get the toys anymore. I didn't like the toys either. And she's like,
I mean, they weren't that great.
They weren't. But she was like, well, Christopher, I think you're going to probably end up collecting these things. So let's just get them. And I was like reluctantly buying them. She was just probably like trying to reignite my love for it. Cause like Jurassic Park 3 broke my heart.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it wasn't a good movie. It was so different, just everything like that. And I don't think it was until the Tapahara that I like
the green Hasbro Tapahara.
Then I was like, oh yeah,
that is the best one out of that whole group.
Yeah,
I never got it.
It's really good. I've got it hanging on my ceiling.
Oh yeah.
And send it to you.
What was it about Jurassic Park 3 that disappointed you?
I just didn't like it as a movie. It didn't really have a whole lot of plot. It felt a little cheesy. It felt like a monster movie. And even as a kid, I was super neurotic about those things. Don't get me wrong. I love monster movies. But like I'm talking about movies like The Thing and Alien and, things like that that are like a little bit more. I didn't like the campy stuff. I didn't really grow an appreciation for the campy stuff till I was older, which is funny. But yeah, I didn't like it as a movie.
But you were into the Raptors design at the time?
Yeah, I thought the Raptor design was super cool. What I was frustrated about is leading up to it, there was so much anticipation. Why do they look different? What is the story for why they look different? Oh, there's so much going on. I can't wait to find out what's going on. Are people making new dinosaurs? Are the dinosaurs changing? What's going on? In the movie, we don't fucking know. We just changed the dinosaur, It just it
would be one thing if they just appeared different, but then the tagline was like something has evolved, or something to that effect. So there's this expectation of something.
A lot of those taglines were just marketing speak, and then a lot of them were holdovers from just early scripts that were, it's pretty well known that the JP3 script, like there was a entirely different story that apparently involved mainland and amongst a bunch of other things where they tossed it like a month or two before going into production and didn't delay the production, fast track, brand new, an entirely different story about the, crash and rescue.
Yeah.
Which I would love to.
That's so nuts. That's actually one of my other questions about your continuous quest for Jurassic Park 3 scripts and Jurassic Park 4 scripts. That's another question down the line, but like we might as well bring it up now because it is fascinating. Like the untold history between those two things is endlessly fascinating to many of us.
I mean, we only have little tidbits from interviews and interpretations of interviews. So I do imagine there's a lot of misinformation about that stuff that we think is fact, but perhaps things were a little bit different than we know. But at the same time, we do know from everyone that's working on that movie, like there was just a very different version of Jurassic Park 3. And I would just love it's a part of history now. It's not scooping a studio or telling anything. It's not like, anything like that. It's just like, it's part of Jurassic history. I'd love to know what that story was. I'd love to know maybe what made the studio nervous. I would love to know maybe just as an alternative what if, and also how did that organically seed the ideas that eventually became Jurassic Park 3, maybe Jurassic Park 4, maybe Fallen Kingdom even. But I don't know. I would just love it. It'd be really cool. We know how wild the development was, especially in JP4. Many, many years of development hell. I would just go to read those scripts.
What was that, like 13 years? 13 years of development, basically, right?
Yeah. An absurd amount of attempts. There was at least, I don't know. We know the John Sayles script, and then we know hard fact that Provovich did a script in 2011, then Jaffa Silver in 2012, and then we know the rest of it. But yeah, I would just kill to read those. Other than the one that's online, the John Sayles script from 2004. Right.
Yeah, I really want to read. I recall one of the scripts allegedly being about unearthing a previously unknown species of dinosaur that was then fast tracked for development.
That was the Jaffa Silver script, and that was the Malosaurus, and eventually Malosaurus, they decided to go with a hybrid rather than a unknown species. But yeah, that was the Jaffa Silver one. It shared a lot of similarities. In fact, they're credited. There's so many similarities with the script that they're credited in the Jurassic.
I wonder if was Malosaurus? Do you think they just like saw Mapusaurus and like, let's just swap that out and make a big,
I don't know. I really don't know. Like, I genuinely don't know what the naming was.
Of course.
I imagine that Jaffa Silver and them had probably maybe a reason for it. I've never looked into the Latin of it. I wonder if there is a meaning to that.
Well, mal is typically bad, in Spanish.
Oh, okay.
Mal is no good, bad. So it's like bad dinosaur. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's funny because do you remember what the toy was called for the Indominus, the code name? It was the Bad Boy Rex.
Oh, yeah.
That's funny.
Not such a coincidence. That is funny. Yeah, I one of my favorite aspects of the whole Jurassic franchise is the mystery of what these animals are and were. And so you're just kind of like tossing a line down into deep time and pulling something out, and you have no idea what that thing is really. And I think that's one of the aspects of Jurassic that I miss the most these days, that like dinosaurs aren't treated as mysteries. They're treated as like familiar comic book characters from the 80s that are then like shown to you in brief moments. You know, like there's not mystique, and there's not like an animal about them. They're like well-known properties that are brought back.
The Jurassic World movies, because they've been so focused on their hybrids being the big bad, new bad, they've forgotten to make dinosaurs exciting to the viewer. They've forgotten to make the fact that, real dinosaurs, just like you said, bring in that mystery of like, we're cloning this, we're trying, just little things like lines about, we're studying the blah, blah, blah. They've, shown behaviors we never expected. We learned this about this dinosaur. We found out this one was venomous. We've, just little things like that would have gone such a long way in the Jurassic World films by making dinosaurs still have a sense of mystique. And that way, when a new movie comes up, people will not just wonder, oh, what's the species name? Because that's what it's come down to, is what's the species name. It's no longer like how will this thing behave, because that doesn't matter. What it's going to do is run at the camera and run at the characters and try to murder them and for no apparent reason continuously. It's like, it's taken away some of that mystique. I absolutely agree. I think that they've written themselves in a corner with that. But the thing is they could easily kind of get themselves out. I mean, they could just, sort of change the approach and boom, that's that. I think that it can rebuild that mystique around it.
I think so. I think there's still time. I mean, I wouldn't be doing this podcast if there weren't that possibility out there. Let me just say that. So you finished. So you had all the involvement with paleontology growing up as a kid. Did you decide to pursue biological sciences from that point as a career path? I started college with going for evolutionary biology, specifically under paleontology. So that was sort of where I was going. So I was going to school for that a little bit, and then I was taking some side classes in film and some side classes with theater stuff, and just life started doing that stuff you do when you're, I don't know. And ultimately, I didn't finish any of those degrees, and I don't know. Everything kind of just started swapping around, and eventually it's hard to explain like what my career path has taken and everything like that, because it's been it's been all over the board. How did Jurassic Outpost begin, that project? So Jack De La Mare created I think we want JurassicPark4.org or I know it was definitely JurassicPark.4.org, JurassicPark4.org. And I think when he was 14 or something like that. And then he eventually, sort of at first it was like a petition type thing, and then it became like a little bit of like it was like, hey, we want this, in sort of like a Dan's JP3 page type equivalent type of deal for JP4. Right. And so in the lead up to Jurassic World, and it's all like such a blur to me. Like looking back, it's not even that long ago. Like I can remember a lot of things very clearly, but that whole whirlwind of Jurassic is like so overwhelming that I'm like, how did that play out? Like where was I? How did that? But I was active on JP Toys and whatnot, and I began posting on Twitter. And for whatever reason, I just connected well with like even people, even though I was like nobody at that point, I connected well with people in the production, and like was just sort of interacting with it. So sometimes when fake rumors were going around, I'd just chime in like, hey guys, like, try to cool it down. And so Jack had his website, and he had brought in Assis first, and then Assis was like, then was like, hey, I know somebody else. How did they get connected? I don't remember. That's a very good question. I've been told it multiple times, but yeah, I don't remember. But it was one of those things where I think, if I recall correctly, Assis used to write in like Assis was doing a really good job of like scouring the internet. And anytime there's JP4 news, like even obscure things, he'd be like the first to find it. It'd be super well hidden stuff, and he would find it, email it into Jack, and Jack was like, yo, come on. Yeah. Come on, join up. And I think that's sort of how that went, if I recall. And then, I guess like Assis kind of saw that I was doing similar things with the toys, and then similar things with Jurassic, and then just reached out to me and was like, hey, would this be a thing that you'd want to do? And I guess the rest is history. It turns out that it was. Exactly. So then we started in,
I don't remember what year that was, because that was definitely before the movie got delayed. I remember writing for the website when the movie got delayed. And then from there, we were like, okay, then when the movie got the title, we're like, okay, JurassicWorld.org. And then we went through the Jurassic World, and the one thing that kept happening is people mistook us for the official website, and we're like, we need our own name. So then started the process after Jurassic World had came out. Yeah, it was after Jurassic World came out. We started the process of trying to figure out the rename of the website. And by this point, we had more people as well. I believe that Alex and Ryan, whatnot. So we were all just sort of brainstorming the idea. We're like Paddock 9, East Dock, Find Nedry. There were all these random names, and like there's like Jurassic Outpost and Jurassic Control Room and Jurassic. There were a few things, and eventually just Outpost and so on and so forth. And then we renamed the website, and then we launched our website, and a bunch of journalists thought it was the logo for Jurassic World 2 and the name for Jurassic World 2, and there are all these stories like, Jurassic World 2 called Jurassic Outpost. We're like, and that was weird.
I remember that.
So then, obviously throughout all this time, I've been interacting very strongly with the brand, interacting strongly online with the fans, the community, we're just all sort of geeking out about dinosaurs, talking about the movie, and then doing things like finding out, okay, where is it going post Jurassic? Just kind of doing my due diligence back then. And I've stepped away from that game, the scoop game or whatever you want to call it. But it wasn't so much like what's the story about. It was more about things like, okay, what's the sustained game going to be? It was Dino Hybrid and Raptor Squad and stuff like that. And I would usually tell people that was coming, or like that's sort of the things I would focus would be, or like, hey, they're looking into writing a book, or hey, it took them a while, but hey, they're looking into a Jurassic World cartoon type of deal, which is now out. Camp Cretaceous, but it took them a while. There were some failed ideas in the way along the way. But I don't know. It was just, and then plus it's being a fan online, and then writing an occasional article that was usually like, I don't know. I occasionally would just have a long form article about this or that, geeking out or hyper focusing on a weird detail.
Then there's the InGeneral Podcast. How did that develop?
For oh God, I don't remember when the first one came out, but for the longest time, we're like, we should do a podcast. And then it just would not happen. And then there are a lot of podcasts on the scene, and we're like, is it going to look like we're trying to encroach on their territory? Is there room for multiples? Like, are we being assholes?
What other podcasts were around at the end?
I want to say Jurassic Park podcast. I think. And I think just there were other people just in the scene, and we weren't trying to steal their thunder and stuff like that. So for a little, I think JP Legacy might have had a podcast then as well. Maybe they started after us. Maybe they started before us. Maybe they never had one, and I'm making that up. I don't fully remember anymore.
I don't remember one. Yeah.
I swear to God, there was one. I swear. If there wasn't, I'm sorry. But anyhow, we just we were kind of navigating it, trying to figure out, hey, how do we go about this? But eventually we made it happen. I think it was Jack, Assis, and myself all on the first one, and it just immediately became pure shenanigans. It's those. I don't want to listen back to them, but we could not stop. I mean, listen to me. We could not stay on track. We just rambled.
I have to say, so I have a love-hate relationship with podcasts, and I would say that the podcast that I've listened to most consistently is y'all's. And I struggle with shenanigans and just what I perceive to be a wasting of time. And not getting to information because I need information. That's why I'm here. But I never really had that problem with you guys. I just genuinely really enjoyed it.
Well, thanks. Yeah, we always something that we really need to make happen more often. It's like the thing where we're back after a half year hiatus. We're going to be back every week, or we're going to be back every month, and it happens twice, and everyone's like, oh yeah, it's happening. And it just once again just dies off, and we're like, oh God damn it.
Well, I mean, from my perspective, for one thing, just coordinating with people as life goes on just becomes a nightmare. And then two, I've noticed from Jurassic World to Fallen Kingdom and beyond, you guys are just kind of well, these movies exist.
Fallen Kingdom was tough. When we all saw Fallen Kingdom, none of us liked it at all. And we didn't want to be like super negative online. So we were having trouble figuring out what our relationship would be. We all sort of lost the thunder to like post about things, to talk about things, because, you know, if we try to do a podcast, it was just immediately like, God damn it. Everyone just yelling, you know, everyone was angry. It just wouldn't be an enjoyable thing to listen to. It was very pessimistic. And so that was weird. And I think that is what contributed to the podcast becoming a lot less regular. But it's not that we're not fans anymore. It's just, it's been hard to regain that momentum.
So I perceive that as it happened. And now as I am doing my own Jurassic podcast, I am encountering the same issue. And it is very difficult because I mean, for the bulk of my podcast, I'm speaking to other scientists and paleontologists and people somehow peripherally affiliated with the science aspects of Jurassic. And they all have the same like criticisms of the filmmaking as well as the science and everything else. And so like every time I do one of these episodes, I feel like I'm just like broadcasting a bitch and moan soapbox about, you know, the way that these movies have failed us. And it sucks because it's like, I'm committed to being optimistic, and I genuinely believe that there is so much potential here. But it is really fucking hard. It is really hard.
I mean, yeah, no, I'll be the first to admit that I haven't been as happy with these movies. I'll also be the first to admit there's been a lot of fucking good ideas in these movies. Like Fallen Kingdom,
absolutely. I
don't like that movie at all, but I think it is filled with some of the best ideas a Jurassic sequel has had in its broader overscoping story. I think that the idea was there. It just fell apart on the execution. It was very pretty, though.
Yep.
Maybe too pretty, though, because a lot of times the cinematography didn't focus, like, serve the scene.
Serve the story, kind of. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
I actually do. I'm one of the few people that does kind of harbor a love for Fallen Kingdom. I'm able to see through it for whatever reason. I think it's because I'm a messy bitch and I see value in other messy bitches out there. I kind of really enjoy Fallen Kingdom. I prefer it to Jurassic World. I do think I critique these movies a lot, and the teams responsible for them. But I do deeply believe and genuinely believe that there are many very good ideas, like some of the best ideas since the novels in these movies. And that I hear every time I hear Colin Trevorrow speak, I'm like, oh, dude, you are a cool, smart guy who understands, you know, cool things and has good ideas. And then I see the movies and I'm like, what the hell happened?
Yeah, you know, I think part of it is he has so many good ideas, and like it's like enough for like 10 movies, and it seems like he just doesn't want to let them go. So they like a lot of them happen in like one movie. Like Fallen Kingdom feels like it was 2 movies or parts of 2 movies, none of them entirely complete, but I don't know. I mean, hell, Fallen Kingdom could have been Jurassic Park 4 with a few minor tweaks to the story. All you had to do was say the volcanoes erupt and save the dinosaurs. They've been left alone all these years. But yeah, like that's the thing is, the other thing is where the franchise has gone and the movies have gone. My issue is Jurassic World feels kind of utterly pointless, other than introducing the concept of hybrids. But once again, Fallen Kingdom did that. Yeah. So Jurassic World feels a little redundant to me. I don't necessarily know what it served in the story of where we're going right now, but I still prefer it vastly to Fallen Kingdom.
Really? Vastly? Huh. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think Fallen Kingdom is better.
What is it about it?
It just... Fallen
more
Kingdom,
cohesive. It's like one movie. Yeah.
It's more cohesive. It's one movie. It's got a really good... not a really good structure. It's got a good structure. It knows what it wants to be, and it is that unapologetically. Fallen Kingdom thinks it's something that it's not. Jurassic World just tried to
see there. I disagree.
I don't think Jurassic World was trying to be a Jurassic Park movie. I think Jurassic World was just trying to be a Hollywood blockbuster.
Yes.
I do think that Jurassic was sort of like with everything that his career has faced and the criticisms that he's faced, some of them unfairly. I mean, I've read Duel of the Fates, and it is significantly better than The Rise of Skywalker. Is it perfect? No. There's some big issues, but that was draft 1. I think some of them would have been ironed out. And
it makes sense. It makes sense as a movie.
Structurally, it makes sense. Thematically, it makes sense. It's actually something with really cool ideas.
The characters make more sense.
Oh my God, it's such a different movie that it's genuinely heartbreaking, because it was like one of those things. It's like, I get it. It's somebody that's a Jurassic fan that's been like, well, he execute on Star Wars, but like, it's like, no, he seemed to immediately get it. He got those characters very well, and he found a way to pull them together. There's some silly ideas in there,
totally,
but nothing as silly as what we got with the Rise of Skywalker. And you can kind of feel where the studio
I agree 100%.
Guiding some of those decisions, like with Kylo's stuff. You can tell the studio had their reactive clause in that storyline.
How do you perceive the reactive clause in Jurassic?
I feel that Jurassic deals with, it does try to take what people are saying into account, but it vastly misinterprets what people are saying and then applies the surface level critique in all the wrong ways. So it's like, oh, you want dinosaurs to be animals, not monsters. Okay, so we make the monsters in these scenes, and then they're people's friends in these scenes. It's like,
friends are these ones. Yeah.
No. We don't want a Sinoceratops licking somebody awake during the island blowing up. That doesn't make sense. You could have cute, weird interactions with the dinosaurs like that, but like,
yeah.
For one thing, we still want to see carnivores always acting like murder machines, being like dripped on by lava, but still trying to eat a snack. It's like, did I say Carnotaurus?
Yeah.
I try to say Baryonyx. It's just, I don't know. It's you can see where the critiques, you can see where Zara's, like the feedback over Zara's death got misconstrued.
Oh, absolutely.
They got vastly misconstrued. So then it's like they're only killing off villains. It's like, no. It doesn't matter that her death was unearned. That's not the problem. The cinematic language in that scene is super confusing to who she was as a character. And then there was no payoff to that being a traumatic death. The movie had fun with it, and I'm not saying they can't have fun with it, but then they didn't treat it like it should be something that should be horrific. It treated it like it's something the viewer should be like, yeah, eat her. And it's like, you're watching as a viewer and going, well, this is weird. What did she do? Like, because the cinematic language was very much like about making the death feel playful and earned, and you really only do that with villains. You don't make a death, especially in a Jurassic movie, you don't like celebrate an innocent person's death. I guess the closest thing that would come to it is the unlucky bastard in The Lost World. But I don't even necessarily think that's played for laughs. It's just a little funny.
But that's not even anywhere close.
Yeah, I'd say the only thing is it's a little funny the way David Kep did the screams as he got eaten. He was having fun with that one. You could tell that they were having fun with the recording there.
Yeah, for sure. Tell me about the Beyond the Gates project, if you will. How that began.
So Jack and I, we constantly, there's as you can imagine, there's a lot of toys and stuff that most of the time when toy images go online, it's like you find it on Amazon or you find it on Target or whatever, what have you. So there were times that we were I don't know. Basically, long story short, is we were in communications with Universal about opportunities, and then in ways to better communicate, releases with the toys, among other things. And then Mattel was kind of, reached out to us, like, would you guys want to explore doing some exclusives that it's not for Outpost really, it's like, would you guys want to do something like that type of content but for us? And then it just turns out it was Target's program really. Is ultimately Target was saying, hey, is there a video program that we can do to promote and excite fans about our upcoming things? And that was just such an awesome opportunity to find a way to inform fans about new items that were coming out, show them off for the proper first look at the first time, show the behind the scenes making up, let the developers and designers talk about these items in ways that you normally don't get to hear, and see things from behind the scenes of the development of these toys that you otherwise might not get to see. So it's sort of like knocking all these birds off with one stone. To be fair, a lot of that came from our own pitch though, because basically they're like, how would you guys do this? So. Yeah. How would you guys do this? Give us a pitch. I think they gave us a week to give them a pitch. And then we came in with our pitch, and then we had to come in with our storyboards and everything like that. And, Jack and I were working tirelessly, because I think the first email came in like the final working day of November. And it was originally going to launch in January rather than February. And then, our turnaround time was insane. Because we went from thinking of what is going to be, having a few pitches, working it out, storyboarding it, then, working down even further down the line of being like, okay, now let's make a rough cut of the episode all with storyboards without having product, without knowing what an interviewee is going to say. Like, it's just like, we really worked through all that. We worked with, I think his last name is Vogt or Vought, Lucas Vought. We storyboarded, we had an idea for a really, really exciting CGI intro, and we contacted a CG artist and said, hey, we got this crazy idea and you got about 2 weeks. Can you do it? And he was like, hell yeah, Jurassic? Hell, it's official? Hell yeah. And we were nervous because it was a really big undertaking, and it was, something that we're putting a lot of time in, paying for CG for it, but it's something that we believe would make a really cool splash. And, so showing it to Universal was like a little nervous because we're like, what if they don't like it? Like, we got this T-Rex and we got these gates, and like Lucas modeled everything type of deal. So like even the gates, like every single one of these things just came from our minds and Lucas's like hand, and and even Lucas's mind, he helped contribute to a lot of that. And we showed it to them, and thankfully they're like, oh my God, this is like way crazier than what we thought you guys were going to do. Because they're like, do you guys need help with anything you're doing? Or like, you got it. We're like, we got it. And then, so basically we don't choose the item. We didn't choose the name of the show. We didn't create the logo of the show. We don't choose the item. We have to go through a lot of approvals and whatnot, but it's basically, it is our show. They're just making sure that what we're saying is accurate and, makes sense, doesn't contradict anything, or doesn't like misrepresent the brand in any way. But it's been a really cool experience. I'm not sure if I did a good job explaining that. I kind of jumped all over the board, but you can let me know.
I mean, it reads as pretty clear and clean to me on my end of things. I'm so glad it's happening. I think it's a great project, and I love that Target took the initiative to do that.
But it's a weird opportunity, and you're sort of like, how did it happen? I mean, I don't quite fully get it. It was like one of those things. It's like, we worked at it. I guess it helped that Jack and I, and that's the one thing, Jack, if you don't know, he's a filmmaker by trade. Professionally, he's worked with studios.
Oh, I know.
Videos, shooting videos,
absolutely.
and whatnot. So I think a lot of people might have been looking at that and thinking that like we were just brought in to like host it. And it's like, no. Like Jack and I are the ones that edit this thing. Jack is a pro at editing.
Totally, yeah.
And, this whole thing, start to finish, Caleb did the music. Start to finish is like, basically our baby. We've had a lot of control over it, and it's been really cool to see it come to life. And thankfully it's something that Universal has supported, something that Target has supported, Mattel has supported, and it's been a lot of fun for everybody.
I love it. I think it's great. I wish it could have started sooner, but I'm so glad that it's happening now. It's been really fun. It's frustrating though. I mean, again, I'm curious. I mean, because we're super fans, so like I waste so much of my life on stupid Jurassic bullshit. But I'm curious, because product images come out like months sometimes before it's announced on Behind the Gate.
Yeah, it's never been the plan. It's like always. It's always like a week.
But it's like, behold, this thing you've seen. Yeah,
it's always like a week and a half before the episode goes out that it leaks, like that it's leaked, and it's like we've already cut and we've already turned in our finals and everything like that, and it's like we're excited to exclusively reveal this blah blah blah, and like I'm writing. It's so funny. I'm writing the cheesiest scripts for myself, and I don't know why, because when I'm reading these lines, I'm like, who wrote these lines? I'm like, I wrote these lines. It's so cheesy. I keep writing myself these really like, what the hell did I say in the Raptor one? Well, I don't remember, but I said something incredible.
I can relate. I do that to myself doing the podcast all the time. I'm like, how the hell? Why did I write this? Am I a crazy person? Like, what's the disconnect here? Like, I love alliteration. I'll put like 3 P words in a row.
I do that. I write the cheesiest stuff. But it's been a fun time though, but it's been difficult. Let me tell you, it's difficult I'm filming with a DSLR camera and my own sort of janky lighting setup. I had to like build a set behind me, get all these plants, figure out a design look that I thought would actually be approved by Universal, something that actually
it looks
visually
great.
Works.
Yeah.
We were so stressed going through that.
You nailed it.
Yeah. Jack and I were looking at like shiplap online. We were like, hey, we got to build a wall because otherwise my house is filled with white walls, and I'm filming in my house because it's COVID, and there's all these things, and then I have to focus my DSLR on where I'm going to be standing and like walk 20 feet to it, and then like adjust the light. So that stuff has been been a challenge. But yeah, I would definitely like if some of the stuff didn't leak, but I still think that we're still showing off the first proper like look of what these things actually look like in hands. And personally, I think that some of the promo images don't really look that great. So seeing what they really look like, or maybe most of the time for the better, maybe sometimes for the worst, stripes, the stripe of the Jeep or whatnot, seeing the real thing sometimes. But for the most part, I think that we've shown that these items look great. And I think that's excited a lot of people. And that's, I wouldn't be doing it if I wasn't excited by it and didn't believe in the items for the most part. I think that
absolutely.
Not all the items, I get it. Not all the items are collector's focused. Like the Raptor Squad set definitely doesn't feel as collector's focused. It's a little bit more casual friendly. I think it's going to do great with kids and moms and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I understand most of the super fans watching the show probably want more things like the Amber
are not
collection.
really interested in that.
Yeah. So I do get that. I would love to be able to do more than toys. You know what I mean? I'd love just to be able to talk the design. Have more than a 2.5 minute show. But that's neither here nor there.
I guess it must be frustrating when you are like, behold, and then like, all the super fans have already seen it for like, weeks and months. That's got to be disappointing. But going back to being critical and also being involved in this capacity, I know that you have been critical of the Amber collection for a couple of reasons, as many have. How do you, as someone who's like kind of basically like the spokesperson for the brand in a way, how do you navigate that kind of having that type of critical perception within that space? I
don't know. It's been really weird. It's been something that I've thought about a lot and been like, it's sort of like, oh, this is a little nerve-wracking. But I think that the only way that my relationship with, especially if I'm doing something forward facing with the super fans, is I think I need to continue to be earnest and honest. So I think, for a little bit while there, I was a little nervous, but I realized one of the reasons why, us as people, filmmakers working on Beyond the Gates, Universal is 100% on board, but it is one of those things. It's like, well, can you present? And then what's the context? What's the contextualization of you being a presenter and whatnot? And it's something that Universal wanted, and they liked the idea of. Is they're like, well, the community does have this relationship with you, so if you do keep it earnest and honest, that could be something that's important. And it's something that's weird, and it's something that I struggle with, because it's like, I saw the stripe and I went, I thought I had a production error, to be honest with you. But no, choices are made in toy development to keep things at a certain price and whatnot. I don't know exactly what the story is there, but obviously it wasn't an error. So what else would it be, really? They didn't remove it because they stylistically felt like it. That's just the truth of it, and it happens. And then the Amber collection is interesting because it is the price of a collector's series, and it is a collector's series, but for Jurassic Park, for a Jurassic World fan, it might be hitting all those bells and whistles and check marks for you. But for a Jurassic Park fan, when you want the Jurassic Park Velociraptor or whatnot, I don't think it's quite there. It needs, I think, we need Jurassic Park accurate sculpts. I think that we need more, and then we need more sculpting detail on the actual sculpts so they read better, because they're very detailed, but it's all fine detail, so it's hard to see. I think accentuating them just to read at the smaller scale would do wonders. Yes, I know that's even maybe less accurate, but just making it read a little bit more it's when you look at NECA, what David Silva does. It's
well, you could argue that they kind of did that with the first Jurassic Park Raptor. They went for like a more like the brown, just a brown palette, like a straight brown palette, which is how people perceive it in the movies. But in reality, the actual coloration was significantantly different. So like that is an attempt that they took for that. Yeah. So that's an example of them doing that. And I don't think it really worked out that well, personally.
No. I definitely, because it's missing the little details. Like, then get the color around the eye, the fact that the lip has like dots and whatnot. And these aren't things that are uncalled for, because you look at other collectors, and that's the problem. It's inevitably going to be compared to the other leaders of the market in these realms, and Jurassic Park fans especially are going to be picky. And then the other issue is, as we've seen, it looks like maybe style guides and whatnot for the classic films aren't as detailed as they are for the modern films. So you'll have things like really detailed and proper, like Baryonyx toys, and then things like the Jurassic Park Raptor. The first time they released one, it was green. So it's things like that you realize that they're is less. It's more of a challenge. So I think that you're always. That's just where it just needs to go further. Is ultimately. I mean, I think I've seen Brad saying it online.
Yeah.
That the Lost World Raptor just is like, it looks beautiful, but it just doesn't look like the Lost World Raptor, and that's fair. That's fair.
It doesn't.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair.
The Pteranodon looks great, though.
It looks so good. When I got that, it was like one of those like, oh man, if this is the direction that Amber Collection is going, I see a future for it. For a long time, I was like, you know what? I was worried about it because I didn't feel that it was really engaging the superfan well enough, and I worried that it would be a investment issue for retailers and maybe take up shelf space, that items that would do better and that also are more appealing to collectors would be kind of knocked off. So I was afraid that it could become an issue for the brand. So it's one of those things. I think we're going to have to see how it goes. But I think if we get more in the direction of the Pteranodon and taking it further than that, making the detail read better, I think that will be in a good spot.
How do you feel? So, like, I saw that they are pulling the design of their Carcharodontosaurus from Jurassic World Evolution, which, given their history with their original sculpts, I was thrilled by. What is your relationship with that sort of thing?
So something that I've been outspoken about is they are struggling with proportions. The heads are getting too big, the tails are getting too short, and it's making the dinosaurs just look like an entirely different art style. They're not looking Jurassic anymore, and it's. I think it's like almost like they don't realize that it's not an art style. Like that, some like the earlier dinosaurs, they made some compromises to fit them into the box, and as time's gone on, it's like as new designers come into the brand, it's like it's becoming more and more an art style. I'm not a fan because I don't find them recognizably Jurassic, all of them, when they do that. I feel that that's something that's working against them in that regard. So it's something I would like to see, like, just let's remember what these things look like. Jurassic more or less should look real. These should look like animals.
When you're talking about the original sculpts, or when they're adapting from Jurassic World Evolution to the figure?
Well, okay, so with Jurassic World Evolution, the Carcharodontosaurus, it's nice because they had they were able to take a 3D model basically, and it had the right proportions. They reworked it into the toy. The tail got shrunk a little bit, but overall the proportions are modestly there. Like, they look proper for a Jurassic Park toy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get that.
Sure.
I think that is a benefit, but they could do that with their own stuff. The issue is like, it's almost boring though. It's like, we've already seen the design. Why not? Like, if the designs aren't canon, either like say this is a toy based off of Jurassic World Evolution, or do your own thing. Like, I think it'd be really cool to call it a Jurassic World Evolution toy. Yeah. My worry is we're gonna stop seeing unique designs. Like, as we saw, Takara Tomy is doing an Amargasaurus, and it's Mattel's design of the Amargasaurus, and now Takara Tomy's doing it. And I'm like,
but they also did a Dinochirus that was, I think, Collecta's design, which is very weird.
It is very weird. I don't know what's going on there,
weird.
But it's not the first time that we've possibly seen like asset sharing within the Jurassic brand, and I'm seeing that more now. And it's like, it might be a bit boring. Like, let's keep canon designs canon, but like let the toys do their own thing. Hopefully they adhere to the art style, but like, I don't necessarily want to see everything like, oh, we've already done an you guys want to do an Amargasaurus? Well, we've already done one in this toy line, so just use that design. Well, that's boring because that's not the canon design. That's just them creating their own design. And I like it, but that's just them creating their own design. So let this other team create their own design because there's no real canon. If you want to give her like a proper homage and a call out and whatnot, like the Mattel Amargasaurus or Jurassic World Evolution Carcharodontosaurus, but without that, I'm just worried that we're going to see like a lot of regurgitated designs at that point. I hope not. But if they do an evolution line, it'd be cool as hell.
It would be cool. It seems very unlikely. There is sort of like cartoons are made to sell toys ultimately. So, I mean, that is like a big part of, I think, why Camp Cretaceous is here. But again, they changed the Monolophosaurus. So like, you can tell that they wanted the Monolophosaurus for like to pick a toy to put in the show, but then they changed it. So it's like interesting to me how this is going to go moving forward.
I was so shocked when that trailer came out and there's Monolophosaurus because I thought it was just, they have a long history and this is totally fine. It's totally valid to fill out the toy line with stuff that aren't in the films and whatnot. Right. But they have a long history of that. So when there was like Kenji and Monolophosaurus, I'm like, well, they probably wanted a medium-sized carnivore, and that was there, and there wasn't really anything in the show. So I just thought it was like a toy filler. And then it was in the trailer, and I was like, what? This is cool. But very surprising and weird because Monolophosaurus has no prior canonical connections to Jurassic World or Jurassic Park. And it's like, if you wanted that size.
But Proceratosaurus did.
Proceratosaurus
kind of similar.
And it looks kind of
similar. And was in the
similar.
original park. And this thing also seems to be in the original park. So it would have been a great way to just tie that together, but they didn't.
I'm confused by that. Like, I don't want to. Okay, listen, I don't want to bitch and moan about them creating new dinosaurs and whatnot. But at the same time, with the premise of what Jurassic World 3 is and the fact that the floodgates seem to be open for like whomever to make dinosaurs and whatnot. And so that means we can break away from the canon of the dinosaurs within the parks. Why add something completely left field when we have all these dinosaurs that we know about that have never been depicted? So why not actually start determining the canon designs for some of these other species that we've never seen, like Troodon, Suchomimus, Proceratosaurus, Metriacanthosaurus, the other small Herrerasaurus, everything like that. Like, I would have rather them pulled from one of those species and like finally been like, this is the canon design. And if they so chose to pull reference something else that's already been made from it, cool, as long as they weren't forced to, as long as there's like a choice. Like, you know what, we really like that design that Jurassic Park the game did. Let's pay homage to it. And not like, well, we already have a Herrerasaurus in this completely uncanon thing, but you got to use the design. Hopefully it's not anything like that.
And speaking of canon and toys and cartoons, I loved season 1 of Camp Cretaceous, and I think it gets Jurassic and is able to do Jurassic better than either of the movies had a chance to do at this point, in my opinion. And then season 2 came out, and I really enjoyed season 2, but it also felt like it was pretty divergent from the reality we had become established with. And I know it's supposed to be canon, and I don't understand how they're going to reconcile that.
I don't know.
For me,
the only way that I can reconcile Camp Cretaceous season 2 is let's pretend the campers get rescued and it's them retelling and embellishing their story, and eventually when the series ends, like, it's going to cut away to a room with them like telling everybody, and then someone's going to be like, we definitely didn't ride on the back of that Ankylosaurus during that explosion, and I definitely don't remember you flipping out hand sanitizer. Like, Ben, you did not fight off Toro with a spear, something like that. You did not jump on Toro's head. You didn't communicate with Bumpy the way that the show showed it. Which, again, it's fine to have that relationship. I think that's a cool idea. Or like, Bumpy didn't get that big that fast. You're exaggerating. I think that's the way that you reconcile those things. And
that's my own headcanon for moving forward. But it seems like that may not necessarily be the case.
I don't know. Let's just hope that season 3 is a return to form from season 1 rather than being season 2. And season 2 maybe will just stand out like the weird black sheep that it is. And I think if that happens, people are going to be more confused by season 2. And I think that some people are like, oh, I don't get it. I don't get why you don't like it. But let's just hope that people maybe will go, you know what? I get it. Season 2 was really weird after all.
Yeah.
Very different than these other 2 seasons that feel.
It was really weird. It did really cool things, though. Like, it's the first, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it the first time that someone shot and killed the dinosaur in the Jurassic franchise?
And it's just funny.
Canon?
I saw a lot of people saying like season 2 was super dark. I'm like, it wasn't super dark. It was super cartoony. It was like, I guess it was dark in the way like a G.I. Joe comic or like a 90s like goofy cartoon, but it wasn't adhering to our world at all. So none of the reality felt, the characters weren't dealing with as heavy personal themes. They seemed to backtrack on some of their character development and become more trope filled. There's just like a lot of things like that where there wasn't a semblance of reality. Mitch and Tiff and whatnot, they were so cartoony. It felt so weird. As a cartoon, tonally, it could have been okay, but I still don't think this overall story structure of season 2 was there either. So it didn't have much to say.
Yeah.
But it did shoot and kill a dinosaur for the first time on screen and then decapitate it, which was so left field.
Yeah.
It didn't, I don't know. I have a theory, and this is completely unfounded, possibly untrue, but my theory is maybe Dominion's delay saw some big story changes for Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous because they kept talking about tie-ins, so maybe things were going to go very obvious in a direction where like, it's too soon, we don't want people knowing about this. Maybe season 2 had to be rushed out, and it maybe is a JP3 thing where it's like the elements of season 2 are all throughout there, but the way it actually connects with the story just isn't. I don't know. It's weird. It's strange.
I agree. And I kind of had a similar feeling. Yeah, I don't like. My biggest issue with season 2, though, was the cryogenically frozen mystery monster in the locked broom closet. Like that really hurt me. Just because I don't. It's just so cartoony, you know. It's like Dr. Evil coming out. It's.
I think it just would have worked better if it were in a cage.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
I think that would have, and also just on like a broom closet. I think that the concept is fine, and I'm excited to see where it goes. But the visual depiction, again, let's just call it to, let's chalk it up to like stylistic showcasing or whatnot. It's like, oh yeah, that's canon, but maybe the way the show depicted it seems a little cheesier. We've never seen
that was
storage. I don't know.
What would you like to see in your heart of hearts in the future of the franchise? What is your ideal moving forward?
Pachyrhinosaurus.
You were so close.
I know. Well, I'm so glad that we were able to get that name changed. It was going to come out as Pachyrhinosaurus until everyone saw it, and they're like, what the fuck? I mean, it took throwing a fit online to get that one, but
that's another instance of them just like blatantly copying an existing 3D model of a dinosaur species and just 1-to-1 translating it into a Jurassic Park species. It's like, what is this?
Well, the thing is, you can see the elements of Pachyrhinosaurus in the Sinoceratops design. There are many Pachyrhinosaur elements in there, so you can see it. It looks like ultimately, and this is the canon. This is when you're supposed to talk about Sinoceratops and their stuff. It's an amalgamation of DNA. But the problem is the reason why it's canonically an amalgamation of ceratopsian DNA.
That's in the canon?
Yeah. It's it shares a lot of different ceratopsian DNA. It was very incomplete.
Okay.
Pachyrhinosaurus was the number one contributor outside of Sinoceratops.
Got it. It seems to have a liberal amount of rhinoceros DNA as well.
Yeah, I think that the marketing team heard rhino and probably were just like, well, why doesn't it have the horn? And eventually just, again, I think some of these designers and whatnot don't necessarily know dinosaurs. So it gets so far removed from the real thing. And they keep forgetting that other dinosaurs exist. So when they change these designs, they're not thinking of like, well, what other species might this look like? Or what are the species defining characteristics? What are things that we can't change? Like if you change it, what puts it in an entirely different evolutionary branch? What makes it in short frilled versus long frilled ceratopsian and everything like that? They're not remembering that these are real animals and they share many cousin species that look similar but quite different. And they kind of forget that there's just not like one, so you can't play fast and loose, and you also can't play fast and loose with it. The more dinosaurs you put in this movie, the more carryover of traits there's going to be, so the more important it is to focus on their very distinguishing traits. And I think they keep forgetting that and keep putting themselves in corners where people are no longer able to identify the dinosaurs because of some of that bleed over. There's too much amalgamation of these animals where they just kind of get
too much
softened out and they become, Dinosaurus Rex.
Homogenized into spiky monsters. Yeah. All right. So it goes without saying that you would like to see less of that in
less of that. I think I would just like more character-driven stories with a little less machoism. Owen, I don't really... I don't really fully get him as a leading character. I think that he works really well as like a leading supporting character, but the problem is we don't have anybody leading in front of him with more to say. And now Owen could be a really interesting character. He's this guy that works with raptors and trains raptors, so he could have provided us, the audience, a unique relationship to tell us about these animals and learn these scientific facts and build this mythology around this prehistoric creature and then his unique relationship. But we really don't. We barely scratch the surface with it, and we really don't learn anything from him. I mean, Grant is constantly, having these moments of like awe and wonder where he's like, oh my God, this means this, and it's all coming together. Owen gives us that opportunity to hear things like that in theory, but he doesn't seem to have a unique relationship with the dinosaurs. He's more of just like a guy that had a personal bond with his animals that he trained, not necessarily from a scientific viewpoint, though. More of an
absolutely.
animal.
I mean, he's a military background, and he reads as someone with a military background that's dealing with animals in a military capacity.
But
like,
he still could have had more. He still could have had more scientific input, and he could have still had like a deeper connection.
I don't disagree. Yeah,
he still could have a deeper connection to the park and the island and whatnot. He could have been our. The problem is we have Claire and Owen, but neither one of them are really informing us, the viewer, of anything that's interesting and unique. They're not saying things like the geothermal plant, blah, 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 with the volcano. There's no sort of world building that also build these characters and kind of tell us like, oh, these people matter. So as a viewer, I'm going, well, why do they matter? Why is it these characters? That's where I'm having the trouble connecting. They're interesting characters, but I don't think they're fully defined.
No. And their roles in the stories are kind of just by design, really. Like, it doesn't really make, like, Claire's change from Jurassic World to Fallen Kingdom is just.
Claire, I think, was a knee-jerk reaction to the criticisms of sexism, which, again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a reaction to criticisms of sexism. The problem is the way that they interpreted some of those criticisms or the way to execute on it. It's like they didn't think that they could have a businesswoman that's colder. It's like, well, no, you just pay attention to your depiction, and you also show that that's not necessarily the problem. The problem wasn't who she was, and they took it as like her job title and her personality trait as being the problem, where it's more of, well, then on the other hand, you have fans complain that she wasn't that interesting of a character. So then it's like you have a lot of criticisms of their depiction of the character, which were valid. And then you have a lot of fans that weren't really engaging with the character. So then it's sort of like, what's the fix? And they try to turn that she's this different character, and we don't get to go on that journey with her either, which is the sad part, because going on that journey to seeing her from one character become that character would have been really, really compelling and interesting.
Yeah. That's the whole point. That's what we want to see, really. What should have happened in Jurassic World, but
that reads to me like studio feedback. I don't know that, but that reads to me like studio feedback. To be honest,
honestly, 80% of what I see in these movies reads to me as studio feedback. I mean, that's the only. It seems like the studio's just at the wheel, just like doing this thing. But anyway, what else would you?
But that's part of the job description is being able to properly apply studio feedback. Yeah. And it's not like other franchises aren't getting it. If you don't notice it, that doesn't mean it's not happening. That means that they just stuck the landing. There's merit in studio feedback. There really is. It's just a difficult sphere to manage, and sometimes there can be, power. It just gets complicated. I don't think I need to tell anybody that. I am excited to see. Well, there's so many things I'd want to see. I'd like to get back into the grittiness of the science. I'd like to learn both in the science of what is a world with genetic manipulation like. I would like to maybe find different reasons for people cloning dinosaurs and studying dinosaurs other than entertainment or militarization. I think entertainment makes a lot of sense. I think militarization doesn't necessarily make as much sense as they think it does. I think that medical and like pharmaceutical interests would be, interesting, and agricultural. So I don't know. I'd like to see getting into the science. And also, what is a world with that type of genetic technology? What else are they doing with that genetic technology? And I think that Maisie is a very good example of something like that. Get into the weird Crichton stuff of what is a world with advanced gene editing, and these mega corporations that can do these crazy things. What does it start to look like? Keep the dinosaurs the fun, like the focus of the camera, but expand the focus of the story into other realms. Find ways to incorporate the dinosaurs and keep the dinosaurs as animals. I'd like to see a return to form there. And good ways to remind us of that would maybe being like, if dinosaurs are in our world now, maybe let's see a dinosaur being hunted by an extant animal, something that's supposed to be around, mountain lions or whatnot. I think that'd be interesting to see that the roles reverse and remind us that
they are animals.
Yeah, and also treat them as I don't know. There's a lot of opportunities there. And ultimately, I think isolation and unique environments play a big role in a Jurassic movie. So even if they're on mainland, I think that building a sense of isolation with the locations and also maybe showing us unique environments, so it's like not so much a real place, create some sort of fictional place that exists in the middle of some other place type of deal. I would like to see I'd like to see some unique ideas. I always thought it'd be cool. Like, what would happen if dinosaurs, like, eventually we see them on a boat in the Arcadia and Fallen Kingdom, but like, what would happen if you're following a crew that had like 3 velociraptors that got free on like a cruise ship or something like that, but it was like a skeleton crew or something. You can have that, like,
or a
sort of
cargo ship carrying an
Yeah.
adult tyrannosaur across the Pacific Ocean.
There you go. I mean, I'm sure that was brutal and quick, but
Yeah.
I still don't know how I still think there are raptors on the boat, but but yeah, no, I think that you could write I would like to see, like, what would a small story look like, where it's not big and explosive, but very small and personal.
Yeah.
What would the alien of Jurassic or A Quiet Place of Jurassic look like?
I mean, the alien would probably be another hybrid movie.
I guess I mean something more of like tight, like a small amount of crew, small close quarters, rather like, not so much big explosive action pieces, but more of just like that intense and intimate feeling. And intimacy, I think, is something that made Jurassic Park so special. And I'm like, what happens if you really like bottle that into something? Like, what if you just like take like two little elements and just like really get into like, could an intimate just with like two velociraptors and a small skeleton crew, could that work?
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see if it could. That's not necessarily
I think
where I
could.
want it to all go, but I think that could be fun.
Yeah.
Show me something I'm not expecting, I guess. TV.
I've said this before. TV is where it's at. I would love to see Dan Trachtenberg do a movie like that. I really love 10 Cloverfield Lane, and I think that he would be so well suited to doing a movie like that.
Yeah, no, that would be really, I would love that. There are quite a few people that I'd like to see what their take on Jurassic would be. But yeah, something smaller, something more intimate, I think would be a refresh from the really big explosive movies, and maybe a way to kind of focus on characterization and maybe iron out the relationship and the motivations of these dinosaurs within the film.
Yeah.
Then TV is a great space to explore really deep developed characters. And I think that Jurassic, the demands of films in today's market, maybe it's harder for a Jurassic movie to do all of that. So I think that TV would give it the playground to get into the gritty science and the gritty characters, because TV audiences are a lot more forgiving. They don't want a big choppy blockbuster. They don't need it all then and now, an explosion.
Yeah.
They're a lot. So I think TV.
I really hope that they manage to get that sorted out, because I think there's a lot of potential there. Like a lot
there
of
is
potential.
A ton. I would love.
Yeah,
love,
a ton.
love.
I'm curious about the budget though. Like there aren't. I mean, you look at HBO, and I guess it can be done. Like I watched His Dark Materials. I've watched the whole first and second season like a month ago.
Some of this, by the way, the show's great. If people haven't,
it's great.
Did you like it?
I loved it. Yeah,
really good. The CG is fucking incredible.
It's incredible. The animals look incredible. So like I up until that point, I was like, how are they going to get animals to be a regular feature of the show and not like blow up a budget beyond comprehension? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I mean, if HBO can do it with these little critters, like I don't see why, another platform couldn't.
And another thing that could help is if you had animatronics that you're able to keep reusing.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about those things.
But we do know that animatronics can look bad, even if the animatronics look good. Jurassic Park 3 is a good example of amazing looking animatronics, but you also have to know how are you including them and how you're filming them. And the problem is they just film them in the worst lighting, worst camera angles, just have the Spinosaurus come, it's just, you got to use it right, or else the audience is going to be like, this looks silly. Mm-hmm. So that's a challenge. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying the animatronics are like the cheat sheet, but I think it is a valid way, but CG's
for sure. What about outside of just media, film and television? What about like other applications of the IP?
I really wish that we would see. Okay, so you mean are we talking transmedia then, like things like books and everything like that, video games and whatnot? Are we talking
anything? Literally anything.
I would definitely like to see just a lot more sustained. I would like to see an actual hard canon universe that everything is tying together. If there's a book, it's actually made sure that it adheres to the rules, it gets the facts right, and it's encroaching in space in the way that it won't be contradicted by film. So they're smart about the stories that they tell and everything along those lines.
Related question, and I think you've spoken on this before. What is your perception? I perceive, so like being obsessed with Jurassic, being obsessed with media and sociology and like observing people's behavior and the relationship with media, I see Jurassic being very close in terms of like deep nostalgic and emotional connection as the previous generations were with Star Wars. Like I see that with our generations, and it doesn't have the deep lore and like the flexibility of like magic and wizards that Star Wars has. So it's like a little difficult to really maneuver that into a bigger character driven story. But I do think that there is like almost as much potential there to be explored. And it seems like Universal's slowly getting to that point, like slowly kind of realizing what they have on their hands.
So yeah, I've always said that like the Jedi and the Sith and the mythology behind them, you know what that is for Jurassic? In a lot of ways, it's the different variations of the dinosaur, like the living mythology, I should say. They're not necessarily the founding mythology, but the living mythology would be, why do these dinosaurs look different? And I think that that's sort of Jurassic's like spaceships, and it's Jurassic's, mythology as well, of these different variations of these dinosaurs. And there's so much mystery. The Jurassic Park movies did a very bad job of ever giving answers there. And I'm not saying everything needs answered, but I do think it's time, like the franchise and brand as a whole should be acknowledging its variations of the dinosaurs. Yeah. They should have official terminology for the different variations of pteranodons, whether it's like Pteranodon version 1, version 2, tribe 1, tribe 2, create names for them. I don't really know.
That's it. That's what they need to do. Like,
But it's time that this franchise acknowledges its entire history and starts building a mythology around it. I think the fact that if we could actually talk about the different Pteranodon designs and being like, oh, I wish that they had real names, and that we could say, oh, I wish, I would love to see what would happen if the Pteranodon type 1 met Pteranodon type 3 and, et cetera. Same with velociraptors, or like what if the tribes that we see in Jurassic Park and the Lost World, that's, one type of velociraptor.
Yeah.
What if they met the tribe that we're introduced to, the different type of velociraptor in Jurassic Park 3? Or like, what if they could mate? Like, what would the babies look like? What would this mixture of the Lost World Jurassic Park look? The tiger striped males and the JP, the more unitone females, and versus then the ornate JP3 raptors. What would a crossbreed of those look like? Would the male, would the males come out with like quills and red crests, but like tiger stripes and like a purple color? I don't know. Like it could be just. I don't know. It's just so many opportunities.
How are they going to navigate? Like, so like they put so much emphasis on the Indominus being the first hybrid, but it's clear that all of these animals have been hybrids from the beginning. So that is going to be a confusing space,
I think,
to verbalize and articulate, I think
it's best to move away from the frog DNA aspect. So sexual hermaphroditism and everything like that actually exists in nature outside of frogs. And it most likely would have been, we see that birds and reptiles are capable of it, which means probably they share a common ancestor, which means that common ancestor also then obviously those traits would exist in dinosaurs, whatever. We could call it genetic instability. Obviously, there's frog DNA. We can't deny that, but I wouldn't necessarily lean too heavily on that being the explanation for everything. It's different.
But I mean, there's clearly different variations of these animals being developed, and they don't look different for no reason. Like that genetic material is coming from somewhere, So
it's time to figure that out. Are the JP3 raptors, are they different because of the DNA? Is it different because of the way that they did it? And when I say the DNA, do they have different raptor samples? Are they actually different subspecies of raptors? Are they different? Are they just different species that they sourced all together? Is it different filler DNA that they're putting into it? Is it a different methodology that makes them more pure? Like, I don't know what it is, but they need to put an answer to that for sure. But I still feel like that's different than hybrids, because it's hard to explain, but like, it's like hybrids are they're like not trying to fill in like the common traits. They're trying to fill in the trying to take uncommon, unique traits.
It just seems like a natural progression of the technology to me. It's like, sure, we've been doing this as like a makeshift effort to produce these products. What if we do a purpose designed? We only have X amount of DNA from these 10 species. Let's take these parts and see what we can do with it. Like that kind of seems like what happened with the hybrids as they are. Like the genomic mapping got so progressed that they were able to do a purpose designed hybrid.
I think that they were looking for similar DNA when they're filling in the gaps in the past. And now they're like, what if we take very dissimilar DNA, just very clashing things, and can we make it mend together? And I think that's the way that you look at hybrids. Exactly. The way they filled in the gaps with DNA in Jurassic Park was they were trying to find things that were just the right, just able to make it work, just so close that it was able to make it work. And Jurassic World, when they're making hybrids, they're going bat crazy, and it's working.
What is your greatest fear for the franchise?
My greatest fear, I think, is when Colin leaves. Obviously, somebody else is going to take over. And in the interim, I think the studio would have to fill in some of the leadership roles. And I think that we might see heavier leaning into some of the tropes that I don't like. That's not to dock the studio. It's just like, well, they're like, okay, what's marketable? The hybrids. What's marketable? The Raptors, the military. You know, like it just without. Yeah, I don't know. It might just be a misread on the direction. I hope that somebody comes in also and tries to engage, because there's not like a Jurassic brand team or a Jurassic story group or a Jurassic brand Bible or anything like that. Whomever comes in.
There needs to be like 5 years ago.
Oh, yeah, there absolutely needs to be that thing. But yeah, so my worry is whomever comes in, assuming that Colin does leave, will they do their due diligence? Because it's not going to be handed to them on a platter, and it's going to be very easy to go wildly off course and feel more like the Alien franchise rather than something deeply cohesive like Marvel and Star Wars that really feels like it's all part of the same thing. So my worry is we might go like a little down the wrong road there. That's my biggest worry, and it's not a dock against the studio or anything like that, as much as there's not those. The training wheels don't exist. There's no easy cheat sheet. So it's going to be there's going to be things there to help, and there's going to be a lot of that, but not the level that you need. It's just there's not the level that you need with a story group like that.
And if they really want to value this product, I feel like they really need to invest in that, because like they can do a lot with this if they get it right.
I absolutely am there with you. I think that there's a lot of fun things that they could do. So whatever happens with the future of the brand, I hope it's closer to Jurassic Park in the sense that it tries to keep it grounded to reality and make it character driven. I think that I would buy hybrids and militarized dinosaurs even more if they had just kind of stuck closer to the tone. But I'd rather they don't go down too much of that. I like dinosaurs. That's what, it's one of my things I love, is seeing real dinosaurs. Well,
that's the thing, is that like, that's why this works so much, because we love dinosaurs. Like, it's not because we love like dragon proxies. It's we love specific dinosaurs. These are like archetypal creatures that we love for a reason, for specific reasons.
I'm definitely there with you. And I understand that not every Jurassic Park fan is like a dinosaur fan, so they don't really know it. So like they're not necessarily as put off because they're not engaged. But at the same time, this is a dinosaur franchise. What is the one unique thing you have with this franchise? You have dinosaurs. You're the big franchise that can do dinosaurs. Yeah. Who knows dinosaurs more than anything? Kids.
Is there an unadapted concept or sequence from the Crichton novels that you are still waiting to see adapted?
There's a lot of scenes. There's a lot of stuff in the Lost World book. Obviously, I would like to see the concept of the way that they're doing with the lights and the two Carnotaurs, how they're sort of standing there and just acting weird, like ambush predators and everything like that.
Would you keep them as Carnotaurus if you could?
Only if the design changed, because I think that scene works so well because you don't exactly know what it is. So I think that it'd have to be somebody else, like a new Carnotaurus that's doing that. So it still has that mystery of what the fuck is it?
But it has to be a Carnotaurus?
Doesn't have to be a Carnotaurus. It could be. Okay. I would lean heavily into a more reptilian dinosaur. I wouldn't go into the more avian dinosaurs, which again, I'm very pro putting feathers in the movie. I'm not as rigid though. I say go fantastical with the design. Look at some of the birds that maybe don't necessarily make sense, but you want to make the audience. There's two things you want to do with feathered dinosaurs. You don't want the audience to look at it and go, well, this is the exact same thing I've always seen, but just with feathers on it. And I would rather it be scales. So you'd want to do something entirely new where it's depicting dinosaurs in a whole new light. And also you want to wow the audience and ignite their imagination. So show them things with feathers, like the way birds vibrate their feathers and they make them look weird, or the way that it can change. Yeah. We know what we are so used to the silhouette of a dinosaur looking like one thing. So what if you just vastly change the silhouette of a dinosaur with its feathers and its feathers only? So it's a soft tissue design, and that way you can do all that weird to these dinosaurs and make them look different, and then do things like the feathers fan out like a harpy eagle or whatnot. Like go crazy with it. Put these designs, put the feathered dinosaurs in their own box, be fantastical with it, and ignite the imagination while also staying at least true to science in the sense that technically something like this could exist. and there's bases on
exactly.
it. So,
it just needs to be plausible because there's so much space to take advantage of. Like that's what's so frustrating for me is that you have so much creative space and you don't take it.
Don't do the DeviantArt thing where you've seen the 1,000 feathered raptors that sort of look like a Jurassic Park raptor, but like has feathers on it, and it's just like, okay, cool. It's like Jurassic Park raptor, but with some feathers on it. Don't do the thing where some museums do it, and the dinosaurs have long downy feathers that look like sickly, and they look like they are like have mange or something like that. Don't do that. It's just not going to look good. It's Jurassic Park. Play with it. Evolve the feathers. It's basically like, okay, what if we keep true to the dinosaur science, but maybe say the feathers were more evolved? They had more time to specialize. Or some dinosaurs might have been like that. And then also just keep the reptilian dinosaurs in there as well, and do them all in different ways and do different things and distinguish their patterns of behavior. The more bird-like dinosaurs versus the more archaic dinosaurs. Find unique ways to make them all cool. Fill these unique roles and have fun with it. Where I was going with that, though, is doesn't need to be a Carnotaurus, but it should be something striking. Something spiky or something with a very unique silhouette, something very...
Cryolophosaurus immediately sprung to mind.
Yeah, that would be great.
I also, I think of like a ambush predator, and I don't know necessarily if that body plan suits that sort of thing. Like Majungasaurus, maybe? That's a freaky-looking, weird little guy that kind of looks like it could have that type of
Majungasaurus, especially you could really lean into like the weird, especially if you really made the head properly narrow and sort of like the bulldog like kind of I don't know, you can have fun with it. Majungasaurus could be fun. And I would lean in, like, instead of going like crocodilian with the scutes and scales, I would look at other types of reptiles. I would go really heavily with the pebbly scales, those beautiful ornate patterns, or maybe look at geckos. There's so many cool reptiles out there with unique scale patterns, and we haven't seen them on a Jurassic dinosaur yet. And if they want to break away from leathery skin,
we just get leather pretty much.
We get leather, or we get crocodilian scutes. Is really what keeps happening. So I would like to see. Let's go with there's some really cool, almost fantastical like scale patterns on reptiles. So let's throw that on some of the dinosaurs that would have probably been scaled. Go with some of those more archaic, Abeliosaurids or maybe Allosaurids or things like that. Have fun with it, but show us something unique, but also stay true. But almost be like, what if Crash McCreary did that style? Because I think Crash and Stan and them all sort of created such an art style for Jurassic that hasn't been reflected.
Yeah, it's like Ralph McQuarrie in Star Wars. It's like it established a certain tone and aesthetic that needs to be continued forward, but adapted and evolved, but needs to stay at the core.
We can see unique things, and hell, I'd like to see things like we haven't really seen a proper quadruped. I think that would be cool. I know
a proper what?
Like a quadrupedal carnivore. I think that
aside from like the Indoraptor.
Yeah, but it was kind of quadrupedal. I mean, like, let's look at some of the obviously not dinosaurs, but maybe like Caprosuchus, Postosuchus. Postosuchus probably wasn't a quadruped though. I think that has changed, but it once was. So maybe look at that body type. I'm trying to think of what species have a similar skull structure and that were still quadruped. Play around with that. Let's look at some of those more classic archetypes of those dinosaurs. Like if they want dinosaurs being really reptile and lizard like, well, let's look at the ones they're not dinosaurs, but that's never stopped them with pteranodons and other animals. Look into them. Let's tap into some of those other things, which we're seeing. Lystrosaurus, we saw Colin Trevorrow shared in Jurassic World Dominion, the Lystrosaurus. So that was a complete left field surprise, and I am so for it. We obviously can't see the face, but it looks like the design in animatronic looks good. So
it's pretty good. Yeah. I wouldn't have started this podcast if I weren't feeling somewhat optimistic about the trajectory and potential. So I try to remain optimistic and I try to remain forward thinking rather than backward thinking. But invariably, these things come up and they need to be addressed because I don't really think that they are addressed to the extent that they should be.
It's weird. I'm outspoken and I'm critical, but I feel like I stay positive. I mean, my relationship with after Fallen Kingdom was a little difficult, but my relationship is very positive. I'm very excited to interact with the brand. Sometimes I think that I would work better behind the scenes with less of a public face because I have so many things to say and so many opinions that sometimes it's easier just to find a proper outlet for that on the back channel without just sort of being like blah, 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 on Twitter. But it is what it is. It's complicated and unique and always a fun challenge.
Yeah. All right. Well, Chris, thank you so much for sharing your Saturday quarantine night with me. I really appreciate it. And so many other nights via the Jurassic Outpost InGeneral podcast, which has been a delight for many years for me.
Well, thank you. I need Jack, Cease, and I need to talk and get that thing going somehow. I'm not. I said this at the beginning. I'm not technically proficient, so it's like one of those things where I'm like, guys, I'm not.
Right.
I'm not taking point on this. Like, I also can't. You hear me. You hear my ADHD kick in. I cannot lead a podcast without a script, and I don't like to be scripted. If I have to be, whatever. But yeah, so like I've tried doing podcasts, and it goes off the rails.
Yeah. Well, I've loved them all, and I'm glad that they exist as they do.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we always have fun.
Well, that about does it for this week. I really sincerely hope you've enjoyed this episode. And if you did, may I ask you to like, subscribe, follow, leave a review, tell your friends, post about the show on social media, etc. Also, if you have any particular concepts or ideas you'd be keen to have explored on the show, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm very open to those sort of things. I would love to chat. Regrettably, there will not be a new podcast episode next week. However, in lieu of a new episode, I will be editing and posting extended video versions of the 3 most recent episodes of the show for the NeoJurassic YouTube page. I'm really far behind on that, but it takes a lot to edit like 2 hours of video podcast interview. It's tough. So that will be happening next week, and then we'll be resuming the show the following week as it typically does. Until then, though,